right? It's a signal that the president and the administration is going to look at things like Operation Choke Point as hostile to the interest of the industry. I think if you combine that with the pro-business and the pro-American agenda of the red wave, it's pretty clear that this administration wants to grow business in America. It wants to deregulate. It wants to strip away handcuffs. It wants to lower taxes. It wants to accelerate progress and then the passage to the future in the United States. And all of that, I think, is just very auspicious for Bitcoin and the digital assets industry.
Coin Stories is proudly brought to you by Bitdeer, a global leader in disruptive technology for Bitcoin mining and AI. As a publicly traded leader, Bitdeer boasts a massive 2.5 gigawatts of electrical capacity and infrastructure under development across 3 continents, positioning Bitdeer as one of the most diversified and power-dense computing companies in the world. Bitdeer's leadership pioneered the original advancements in Bitcoin mining ASICs and is now...
And so one part of the pie is buy the future. The other part of the pie, or the other idea, is attract all the capital from the rest of the world into cyberspace, floating above the United States. And the third idea is, should anybody ever decide that they wanna recapitalize their company or their country on something other than U.S. Treasury bills. And by the way, the Russians own Treasury bills. The Chinese use United States sovereign debt. Our enemies used our sovereign Treasury bills or our sovereign debt. Our friends use it. Everyone uses it. If anybody ever decides they don't want to capitalize on that and they want to go to the next thing, they're not going to go back to gold. They're not going to go to silver. They're not going to go to glass beads or bales of tobacco or seashells. They're not going to be able to capitalize on their own fiat currencies because every other currency is weaker than the dollar. They're going to have to go to something stronger, faster. Gasoline and kerosene, the world wanted to buy it, and the world wanted to buy Henry Ford's automobiles. They're going to want Bitcoin, and they're going to want digital capital, and this is really... It's a pivotal moment in the history of the world. I mean, the Trump, Vance, Musk movement, when we made this choice, are we going to embrace technology and Starlink and electric vehicles and entrepreneurship? Are we going to give the people their freedom back? Are we going to embrace innovation? Right? That choice that took place on Tuesday, November 5th, that catapulted us into a whole new world of possibilities, and that made the strategic Bitcoin reserve possible, and that made the recapitalization of the world on sound economic, ethical, monetize, everything under the sun. What does that mean? It means that you pay twice as much as it's worth. You pay 50 times earnings, but the company's only worth 10 times earnings, but you pay 50 times. Why? I know wealthy people, they own 16 estates on the Eastern Shore, and they live in 2 of them. Like, why do they buy them? They land banking. Mm-hmm. What does that mean? Well, the guy makes a lot of money every year, and he doesn't want to put it in a savings account, so he goes and he just buys a cool piece of property. And he buys another one. Well, okay, it sounds good, but here's the problem. The guy buys up the beautiful pieces of property, and so you can't afford it.
Right.
And if the rich guy wasn't buying up all the beautiful houses, they would cost half as much. And you could live in them. I think that we'll probably recapitalize a lot of the world on Bitcoin instead of bonds. But I think there'll still be bonds. I think there'll still be bonds, there'll still be equity, there'll still be real estate, there'll still be art. I think that gold will be progressively demonetized, and at some point, gold will just be viewed like silver. I mean, silver is. I'm wearing a silver belt. Imagine this is a gold belt buckle. I can afford this. You know, I can't quite afford a solid gold belt buckle. I couldn't afford the solid gold belt buckle before Bitcoin. Maybe I could now.
I'm sure you could.
But the point is, I wouldn't buy it now because it's going to devalue until it's worth silver at some point. Because at the end of the day, it's just a little bit better than silver. And ultimately, it's going to be the Bitcoin belt buckle you're going to want.
It's time for a quick break to hear these messages from my partners who make this podcast possible. First up, Casa. It is so easy to set up your Bitcoin 3-key self-custody with Casa that I can show you pretty much the whole process in just 30 seconds.
They're nominally pegged to the dollar, right? The Swiss franc, the euro, all of these, they're not really floating. They're just enough of a floating to make it interesting. But as soon as they get too strong or too weak, the monetary authorities move to bring them back into parity with the dollar. Nobody really wants them to move. So they're on the dollar standard as well. And then there's a third set of currencies that don't bother to be pegged to the dollar. They would be the Naira, the Venezuelan Bolivar, right? There's whatever they use in Cuba, right? And the Lebanese pound, the Turkish lira, they all fall in the category of collapsing, failing. So you pretty much got every currency that sort of works is pegged to the dollar, and every other currency is failing, and so they don't work. So how does Bitcoin? And the last observation is just, the world's better if we had digital tokens. If there's an ethically sound, economically sound, technically sound way to issue them, there's nothing wrong with Joe Rogan issuing Rogan token or Katy Perry issuing Katy Perry coin if it was fair and equitable. If he didn't lie, cheat, and steal, right? And if there's some utility, if you give someone digital utility, or if you just take the idea of, if I run a $5 million a year business, how do I sell securities to the public to raise $3 million? If the SEC makes you spend $50 million on lawyers and accountants in order to protect people that want to put $2 million at risk, it's like you can't buy a $50 million insurance policy to take a $2 million risk. And so what we need is a digital regime where I can do things 1 million times faster, 1 million times cheaper. And if I can do it 1 million times faster and cheaper, the guy that owns the office just had the value of his real estate double. And then all those companies on Wall Street, their stocks doubled. And I looked at the world and I said, there's just a major disconnect. There's Main Street. If you work for a living, if you own a yoga salon, or you run a restaurant or a bar, you operate a cruise line, or you go knock on doors, or you do something, or you fly aircraft, you take risk. You're not allowed to work. Your company's shut down and you're bankrupt. And it's your fault. And if you try to work, you're an enemy of the people. You want to go to work, you're going to kill grandma. Okay? So that's like, okay, well, the entire system is basically stacked, right? It's stacked to oppress, crush, suck the soul out of Main Street, and you're the enemy. It's your fault. And then on the other hand, Wall Street, their stocks all double. They all got rich. They're the best year of their life. And this is the perversity. By the late summer of 2020, if you owned a $2 billion hedge fund, you had $4 billion. When all my smart rich friends have an iPhone, I'll buy an iPhone. When my smart rich friends have a Spirio playing piano, I'll buy a piano that plays music for itself. When my smart rich friends have a jet, I'll buy a jet. So they're going to wait for their smart rich friends that they look up to do it, and then they will follow. Yeah. And I think that in August of 2020, Natalie, when I tweeted we bought 250 million of Bitcoin, it didn't occur to me that no one else in the history of the crypto industry had ever announced that they bought $250 million of Bitcoin. It didn't occur to me that no one ever announced they bought 250 million of anything, right? And it didn't occur to me that no one ever did privately, right? So the most likely situation for a $600 million gain in a few weeks. So we did that. And then we went back to the convertible bond market because the bond holders wanted another bond. So we sold that and we upside it. It was $1 billion bond at 80 basis points. And once we got through all of that, what we realized was our real compelling business opportunity is as a Bitcoin treasury company. What we're offering is securities backed by Bitcoin. The bond holders want low risk Bitcoin. The equity holders want high performance Bitcoin. Some people want high voltage Bitcoin. Some people want low voltage Bitcoin. The ETFs are offering raw Bitcoin, raw wrapped Bitcoin. So you're getting 55 or 60 volatility and 60 ARR, and that's raw. So the ARB doesn't want to take risk for a day. The guy that does the convertible ARB, they don't even want to take risk for an hour, right? So their risk tolerance, their time preference, right, is I can take 2% risk for one day, and that's what I want to do. That's my thing. And there's hundreds of billions of dollars of capital. They want to do that thing. So we give them that thing to do. The bondholder, like, I can take a little bit of risk. Oh, these are the best performing bonds in the world. All the MicroStrategy bonds have doubled in value. Okay, how many other bonds? There is no corporate bond. There's no sovereign bond. There's no other type of bond or no preferred stock you can buy where you buy it for 100, it would be worth 220 a few months later, right? So these are the best performing bonds in the world. It's like they've got the downside protection and they make money. So those people have fixed income funds. They have $100 trillion in those things. They have to buy that. And then they need a company like MicroStrategy that has a 100% traditional market can't handle Bitcoin.
Right.
It doesn't want 60% a year interest that's volatile. It wants 6% a year interest. By the way, that's only 10% of Bitcoin. If I give them the 6%, I get to keep the other 90%. And who gets that? My equity holders get it. And so MicroStrategy created this business model, maybe backed into it, discovered it. I won't tell you I understood it in 2020. I will tell you I understand it now. I'm a late bloomer, but a quick learner, right?
Right. So you can take the crude capital, you can refine it. There's really customers all along the spectrum. Some want high vol, some want low vol. But ultimately it goes to what you always say, the volatility, a feature, not a bug. Okay, well, we're running out of time. So I'm going to go to the lightning round because that was one of the favorite parts of one of our last interviews. So my first question for you is, what do you wish you knew?
Oh, well, that's a speculative asset. You know, it's like I was on television yesterday. When's it going to go down to 30,000? How can you even ask that question? You don't even understand how this works. People that don't understand engineering don't understand it's perfect money. It was engineered to win. How do you know it's going to win? It's like, how do you know the plane's going to fly? How do you know the gun's going to fire? How do you know the stairs are going to work? Because I'm an engineer. That's what engineers do. We build stuff. We build rockets. So I think the engineering is key. And the same is true with MicroStrategy. People think, well, that's like you're just getting lucky, you're trading, whatever. We're engineering something. It's a crypto transformer we've engineered here. Just the fact that you have never seen a